Hello there, music lovers, and thanks so much for dropping by. I wanted to do a quick video about the rumors that the original lineup of Van Halen's going to be reuniting next year, 2019, for what could be a stadium show or a tour of stadiums. Something along those lines is apparently brewing. And these are more than just rumors. This actually started with David Lee Roth, the current lead singer for Van Halen. He was doing this interview for this magazine called Vulture, and we were talking about tattoos and all kinds of things. And he happened to mention the next time you're going to see him with his band, it's going to be where the Yankees play. And so the interviewer was like, what are you saying, that Van Halen's going to play in Yankee Stadium next year? And he kind of alluded that it could be a bill that also included some big names like Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Foo Fighters, Chris Stapleton, and some other heavy hitters. And so it's kind of opened up this can of worms. And then there's been some other insiders in the industry who are also saying, yeah, we're hearing that the original lineup is going to be doing something next year in the form of some kind of a tour. We're hearing stadiums. So that should be interesting to see what happens with that. It actually has more legs than your standard rumor, especially since David Lee Roth is kind of sort of talking about it. But what's interesting is how, Michael Anthony would be back in the fold and what transpired to make that happen. Did Wolfie say that he wanted to do something else, would prefer to have Michael Anthony back so he can go do other things? Did Eddie Van Halen originate this idea? How did this come up, But I will say this, what really makes this possible, I think, is the way that Michael Anthony has handled himself over the past number of years since he's been split from the band, which has been about 14 years. That's the last time that he performed with Van Halen. This was during that whole reunion thing with Sammy Hagar, that tour that was just a disaster. Eddie Van Halen was out of his mind. By the end of it, Eddie and Sammy were not talking, and it was a major mess. There was a lot of shit talk. Of course, Sammy put out a book called Red, where he spilled the beans as to what it was really like touring with Eddie and all this stuff. Gave a lot of details about Eddie's drinking and the way that he carried himself and all this stuff. And, I did a whole video about it. I'll put a link up to it, which I was kind of explaining why I think Sammy is probably not going to be back in Van Halen anytime soon. I think it's because of the way, he shit-talked Eddie. Maybe rightfully so, but did he have to come out with a book and all that stuff? And I already went over all of that. But Michael Anthony, on the other hand, he has always maintained the high road. As much shit as they've given Michael, and I'm talking really about Eddie, Michael has never trash-talked the band or Eddie. He's always taken the high road. What kinds of things have been said about Michael, or what was done? Well, two things that come to mind. First of all, Eddie recently gave this interview where he talked about how he kind of underplayed Michael Anthony's talents, really. He was like, well, I had to teach him all the bass notes that he ever learned. He would come over with a video camera and I would show him the bass notes that he had to play, kind of undermining his bass playing. Talked about him vocally, that he really wasn't that great of a background vocalist, that he had a voice like a piccolo trumpet. It didn't have a lot of body to it. So a lot of the great vocals, the background vocals that people associate with the band, is really a mixture of Michael and Eddie. And so he was kind of giving him some backhanded compliments. And plus, the big thing, though, that always pissed me off and that I know hurt Michael Anthony was when Wolfie came into the band and they erased Michael Anthony's image from the Van Halen website. Like, they actually took his face off of album covers and stuff like that. And I've never really seen a band go that low. I mean, that's a pretty low blow. And, what did Michael Anthony ever do to Eddie? I think one of the things that's come up is that, Eddie never really appreciated how Michael Anthony was real buddy-buddy with Sammy Hagar, after the whole split happened between Eddie and Sammy. You know, why was Michael Anthony going out and playing gigs with Sammy, doing Van Halen songs, you know, and doing all, and that really, you know, says really more about Eddie, you know, because Eddie was sitting on his ass for many, many years, no activity in the Van Halen camp, no tours. And what do you expect? You know, Michael Anthony to sit around with his thumb up his ass waiting for Eddie to call? I mean, you know, Michael Anthony wants to play. He wants to have fun. You know, that's the kind of guy that he is. And he's friends with Sammy. Why can't he go out and play? Why should he be punished by Eddie Van Halen for doing something that he loves? So I've always seen Eddie as this real dick in Van Halen. You know, it used to be, I used to think that David Lee Roth was the dick, and he is. But when you got two dicks in the same band, then, you know, when you can't get along with Sammy Hagar and you can't get along with Michael Anthony, then that really, that's the real dick test. And Eddie Van Halen, you know, he failed those two. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think the reason why this whole thing is possible, us talking about Michael Anthony going back to Van Halen, is because of the way that he's handled himself, the way that he has treated the relationship with the Van Halen brothers. He's never, you know, disrespected them, never shit-talked them. He's always taken the high road, and I think that is his ticket back into the band. Unlike Sammy, who I think may always be stonewalled. Unless this thing here now with Michael Anthony somehow, you know, gets Sammy's foot back in by having Michael in the band again. But that's for the future to really tell. In terms of what's going on now, really the biggest thing out of this, for me, looking at it as a fan, is I'm glad to see Michael Anthony rejoining his band again and being able to go out on stage and play with these guys one more time. Who knows how long it'll actually last? It could be just for next year. It could go to an album or something. Who the hell knows? But the thing is, it would be great to see Michael Anthony be able to do that again, because I don't know if he ever thought it was possible the way that things have been going. So I'm happy for him in that way of looking at things. In terms of Van Halen and what it will mean for the band, the problem with Van Halen is not the bass player, okay? It's not Wolfie. Wolfie's great. He's been playing very, very well and all of that. But it's been David Lee Roth. I mean, he sucks. There was a time when we were all looking forward to David Lee Roth coming back to the band, but that should have happened back in the 90s. By the time we get to 2007, which is when he came back, now we're, what, like 12 years into this now. David Lee Roth, vocally, he's shot. He comes across as just kind of goofy and awkward, and it's just time to let it go. Like, I would rather see Sammy back in there now, actually, because David Lee Roth, to me, he doesn't have anything else to really offer. And I think that if Sammy hadn't shit-talked Eddie for such a long time, that we could be looking at the both of them coming back in. Eddie would be able to tell David, hey, we had a good run, a decade with the reunion. Let's just call it a day, bring Sammy back in, and that would be cool. But that's not going to happen, at least not right now. The problem with Van Halen, the lead singer problem that they got, that doesn't change with Michael Anthony coming back. It's just going to sound better with the background vocals, and it will be cool to have all four of them back on stage again. And like I said, I'm most happy for Michael Anthony so that he can at least enjoy that again. Okay, so what do you guys think? What do you think about Michael Anthony coming back into Van Halen? Is it going to happen? Do you think it changes much? Put your comments down below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and be sure to hit that subscribe button too. And I'll be back soon with another video.